I think the most significant, of course, we always talk about is Avdiivka. The situation is starting to turn back into the favor of the Russians, but not by a lot, a little bit. So after the Ukrainians, so we are going to talk about mainly these three cities, or these three villages. So where the main fighting is happening, the Ukrainians previously have been launching this massive counterattack. Maybe it's massive, maybe it's not that massive, but they definitely have held back the Russian offensive, and the Russians were stuck. They were getting pushed back somewhat, but the situation seems to get stabilized right now. Other than the situation at Badaichi, where the Russians are totally pushed out, is seemingly back into Stepove, with the Ukrainians have basically almost all of Badaichi. I think the Russian forces have done pretty decently over at Avdiivka. They continue to manage to hold their ground, although I still do not have any information to confirm that the Russians have taken the entire of Avdiivka. So the Russian claims continue to be the entire of Avdiivka, but the Ukrainian claims shows that only half is taken. Geolocation of Russian forces, as mentioned by Creamy Caprice, is forward positions getting under fire by the Ukrainians, and this is being called the forward situation, because Creamy Caprice also do their own mapping purely based on their geolocations. So for them, even Avdiivka, just like what we have mapped, or by the Ukrainians, the Russians actually have not captured the entire of Avdiivka. So that's why he called it the forward position. This forward area here, what I can imagine is this area here is actually a gray zone that where the Ukrainians launch attack into, and are definitely not under firm Russian control. So that is most likely the case. So, but of course, for propaganda or for chest pumping purposes, the Russians say that they captured the entire of Avdiivka. Makes perfect sense, because if the Ukrainians are not there, they can't sit there, then they can assume that it's theirs, but they also are not there. This is just a no man's land, probably around this north or western part of Avdiivka. However, what the Russians did do well is manage to push south of Avdiivka. They break south, because this is where they have firm control, right? This is the area that they have firm control. They've pushed south and managed to threaten the Ukrainian retreat from Tonenke, or the resupply route, and of course these three lines around here. And with the Russians poised to attack in this direction, the Ukrainians definitely is reacting in this area here, and that also means that they are unable to deal with any potential problems when the Russian push south into Tonenke, and this is exactly what had happened. The Russians managed to attack. Probably they attack in both waves, and forcing the Ukrainians to fight the battle in this area here. This is where they have to fight, and here it becomes this area here becomes less defended, or they are unable to reinforce, which means the Russians are able to break through, which is what happened, and they were geolocated within this factory or this building. Not sure what is this building. Yeah, some kind of a farm or industrial building. They are geolocated over there, which means that the Russians managed to penetrate through and cut into the center of Tonenke. And with this cut, the Ukrainian forces over in Tonenke is now stranded. And because the Russians have already taken this tree line in the south of Tonenke, which means that the Ukrainian forces is going to have to run through the open into the industrial area and then run out. It's unclear if the Russians have this area, this industrial district. So that's unclear that technically right now. It is possible that the Russians are there, because it's just next to the tree line. It seems to be a very easy target to attack. But tentatively, this looks like the situation right now in Tonenke, where the Ukrainian forces get encircled in this southern part of Tonenke. And this northern area here, this dacha, I believe it's dacha. It looks a little bit like cemetery. Let me see. Is this cemetery, or is this a dacha region? So this is a summer house region. So the Ukrainian forces might be in this area here and holding the line in this area. But of course, this is also a very vulnerable spot. So let's say if the Ukrainian forces have this area, in this northwestern part of Tonenke, or the northernmost part of Tonenke, this area could also be encircled if the Russians manage to push and take these two tree lines, and hit in this direction. Since the Russians are already here, they could potentially deny this road through fire control, and then the Ukrainians are going to have to run in this way from the south. So the situation is very difficult tactically for the Ukrainians at Tonenke. That this is not a very good place to be here. And however, yeah, for the Ukrainians, they still have Badaichi. So this is actually a firm line. So this is actually I believe the Ukrainians can hold, but in the south here, this is actually a weak spot. So let's see whether the Russians can retake this initiative. But tentatively, it's looking not bad. But the Russian forces basically is no longer routing the Ukrainian forces. The route is over, which is why I say the Ukrainians managed to stabilize the lines, because the route wasn't only at Avdiivka. They were also routing the Ukrainian forces over at Robotine, over this area here in the Zaporizhzhia front. They were routing the Ukrainian forces over there as well previously, as well as in Ivanivske, in the Battle of Ivanivske. The Russian forces was making huge push in this village, where the Ukrainian forces constantly getting pushed back. However, this trend of Ukrainian forces getting routed seems to have stabilized. I think Syrsky, the new commander-in-chief for the Ukrainian forces, seems to have taken better control right now and managed to reinforce the lines better. So, which is why we are seeing the Russians going back to their old ways of hitting in multiple locations. So they are now spreading their attacks in multiple locations in Kupiansk, in the Crimea. Yesterday, we have reported attack in the Syretre front. There is exchange of attacks in the New York. They have also doing probing attacks across the Donetsk front, across the Zaporizhzhia front. So we are seeing the Russians going back to this stretchy attack. What is stretchy like Monkey D Luffy, which is what I named the cutout video of the conclusions yesterday. But so this is going to stretch the Ukrainians across the entire front line, and this is going to make it very difficult for the Ukrainians to decide where to concentrate the bulk of their well-trained forces or the better forces, or the ammunition, the artillery. Is going to make it very difficult because the Russian could potentially punch through from another direction. But tentatively, the main attack is still going to be Avdiivka, and I think because we have one full army, it's a center group of forces focusing purely on the Avdiivka front. So definitely with the Zapad group of forces handling a huge front line, Kupiansk all the way to Crimea. So I doubt they will be the one going to be concentrating on that. Sivers Bakhmut under the Yoke group of forces seems to be potential. They is still pretty good, and the Russian and the final the one at Zaporizhzhia front is the Dnipro group of forces focusing purely on the Zaporizhzhia front. I believe this is still also the Russians definitely have a lot in the tank to be able to do some major attack, which the Ukrainians would have to be careful. So but the main concentration of forces seems to be at the Avdiivka front. And so I also mentioned this shutdown of the MiG-29. This is not reported by the Russian Defense Ministry just yet, and the fact that there is photos to confirm this is a rarity, definite rarity. Other things is the mystery of Ivanivske. There is totally no news coming out after the Russians taken the grounds so quickly. Suddenly there was a pause. So not sure what the Russians are thinking. Maybe they were thinking that just ejecting the Ukrainian forces out of the other half of Ivanivske might be enough. And they don't want to take the ground because then they will be fighting next to forests, which is rather dangerous. So because there is all these forests in this area here where the Ukrainians are known to be pretty good at fighting inside. So they hold very ground from it. Very good. They hold grounds within the forest very well, and they can conduct attacks into Ivanivske in multiple directions. It may become a tactical problem for the Russians to try to defend Ivanivske. There is no point and no need for the Russians to take the risk, because if imagine you come in and then you hold a village in this way, then you're going to expose yourself into a lot of different angles for the Ukrainians to attack. But holding a line further away, so now holding this line further away, the Ukrainian forces, if they want to attack, they will have to come out into the open much more. They have to go through the village, which is also and also this open area in the south. To attack through all these areas here means they are more exposed, which is easier for the Russians to negate or wipe out these attackers. But if you're too near to the forest, that's actually very dangerous because the drones can't really see through the forest as well as usual, I would say. So there is good tactical reasons why the if the Russians are thinking in this way. I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that if the reason is that they really didn't want to move to capture the rest of the settlement, I believe this is actually the main reason. Because if they want to capture this entire settlement, then they will have to enter the forest. Like, for real, they have to enter the forest, because that's how you create a buffer zone around the settlement. And yeah, then you go into a battle for the forest where it's just going to lead to further bigger battles, because there's more forest in this area here. And then you're going to have Chasiv over here, which is actually a major military stronghold right now for the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainians can stretch the Russians instead in this area here, and stretch and create a much bigger front line base, where the Russians have to hold defense. It's going to be much more difficult. Like I say, I would have never attacked in this direction, from Chasiv, Stupovsky, and towards Konstantinivka. I think this is a very silly direction to attack through. There's totally no need to fight through all these things, because you can actually just go around it. So yeah, we will definitely continue to monitor. And finally, I want to talk about in these conclusions is Krasnohorivka. I'm very happy to see geolocations confirming the Russians' presence in the southern part of Krasnohorivka. I have been complaining about this parallel universe for a long time. Finally, with this confirmation, Russian forces attacking into Krasnohorivka, which is what the video was, we are able to confirm the Russian presence in the south. Definitely, of course, we have not confirmed the entire claim by the Russians, which is actually pretty big, which is this. We haven't confirmed just yet, but definitely at least we know that the Russians are in the southern part, and so we can definitely confirm that the battle for Krasnohorivka has begun. So anyway, this is the conclusions. Thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe, check if you have subscribed or not. Maybe YouTube unsubscribe you, themselves. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next update.